Morning everyone, welcome to another Sunday School video. We have been doing the story of a missionary, and I thought I'd start in the same way I would if I was in church. I'm going to ask some questions, do a bit of a quiz, see how much you remember of the last 3 videos. Unfortunately, I can't chuck sweets at you if you get the answers right, but at some point in the future we'll figure it out. I'll take Haribo to some hand sanitizer and just chat. Anyway, the quiz. I'll let you pause the video to answer the questions. Question 1. Who's the missionary we're learning about? Is it Hudson Taylor, C.T. Studd, John the Baptist, or Becky Dillingham? Question 2. What sport was he really into? Football, lacrosse, cricket, or ultimate frisbee? Question 3. How many students from Cambridge went to serve as missionaries? In this story, not generally over all time. Was it 1, 6, 7, or 493? Question 4. Which country did he go to first? Was it China, India, Narnia, or Judea? And question 5. What did he find difficult in that country? Was it the weather, the food, the complete lack of mattress, or all of the above? Okay, I'm just going to have to just sidetrack just here. The mattress issue. All right. That's real. That's the thing. Let me show you a picture of the mattress I had in my house in China. Ignoring the amazing Spider-Man curtains, that red thing, that's it. It's like 3 centimeters and it's not even soft. Apparently it's good for your back, but you don't understand. I'm English. It's too late for my back. Anyway, I've given away a lot of the answers, but here are the rest, which I'm sure you knew. The missionary we're learning about is, of course, C.T. Studd, and he was really into cricket. I'm sure this is only because ultimate frisbee wasn't around yet. 7 students from Cambridge went to serve as missionaries in China, which was the country he went to first, and what he found difficult there was all of these things. So we pick up the story when it was time for the Studd family to leave China. Their work had kind of come to an end. And it was an interesting time in China's history. People there weren't super trusting of foreigners at that time, which is kind of because foreigners were doing some terrible things. Won't get into it. But anyway, it was kind of harsh for Charles and his family, who obviously hadn't been doing terrible things, such as life. So they were heading back to England. Got on a boat because no planes existed yet. And I actually don't know if planes existed yet. I'll check that one later. Anyway, they got on a boat. And there was the crew there. They had a band to entertain the passengers. And after about the 3rd day, Charles Studd's daughters came up like, these missionaries, Dad, they're really weird. And Charles and Priscilla were like, what? Which missionaries are weird? Well, the ones that play the music, they've got some great music. But like, they don't sing hymns or read the Bible at all or pray. Kind of funny missionaries. At that point, Charles, I hope at that point he prepared his daughters slightly more for what England was going to be like, because obviously not all English people are missionaries. Had a bit of a bump, what we call reverse culture shock. They'd be going back to their own culture, but wouldn't actually know how it works. It's a kind of an interesting one. This bit really made me think. I don't think I pray for the children of missionaries enough. Because we pray for missionaries, because they're doing the work. But they've received that call from God. It's their mission. It's not the children's mission. But they still have to go around wherever their parents go. It really made me think. So the Studd family arrived home in England. And it was probably raining. Home at last. And they were really happy to be home, actually, because they'd worked really hard in China. And they were exhausted. It had actually taken quite a toll. It had a big effect on their health. Because working for God, it's not easy. There's a cost, there's a price for serving God quite often. And in their case, there were a lot of things that had meant that they weren't as healthy as when they left. So the climate had an effect. And the food had an effect. Which is something that didn't resonate with me, with my time in China. The food I had was amazing. It was delicious, and it was healthy. It was cheap. So we've got to remember that when missionaries come home, they don't stop being missionaries. Just like Amy said last week, not everyone's called to go to a different country and tell them about Jesus. Because there are plenty of people right here. We are called to be missionaries. We're not called to be overseas missionaries. But the work didn't stop when Charles and his family got home. They still were witnesses for Jesus. As soon as he felt well enough Charles found that he was actually really busy, which I think most missionaries, when they come home on furlough, find that very quickly there are lots of churches to go to, lots of meetings to go to, and pretty soon Charles was invited to America because his brother what is that? His brother, not Chris, was working in America with a lot of student movements. So Charles again took another really long ship journey and headed off, this time without his family. And he was separated from them for quite a long time. But in that time, he got to tell so many students about Jesus in America. And they came to believe and understand who Jesus is and how much he loves us. So it was a really exciting time. But it was hard being away from his family. So for his next mission, Charles and the family went to India, and that was actually an awesome time for them. They all went together, and India was where all of the stud daughters became Christians as well. They came to understand who Jesus is. Charles worked in a church for British soldiers and British families in India. And there was one soldier in particular, he was an officer, he had no interest really in going to the church. But eventually he was dragged along because his young son said, oh, you have to come see Mr. Studd. He uses bread and butter in his sermons. Because Charles used an illustration involving bread and butter, which just goes to show that using weird things as illustrations is approved by C.T. Studd. You can see all the other Sunday school... no, not this time, mate. Yeah, maybe next time. Not this time. All the other Sunday school videos for more detail. Correction, he was not an officer, he was the chief clerk in the local military offices, and he had not opened his Bible for 23 years. But, as he kept going, and he kept hearing that Jesus loved him, but that he had done things wrong, he had sinned, but that Jesus could forgive him because of what Jesus had done on the cross, and again, he heard it, and finally this man decided, yeah, this is true, and I want to be a Christian. And the difference was so great in his life that there was a young Indian boy that worked in his household that noticed and said, well, what happened to the master? He used to swear all the time and now he goes to church all the time. He's so different. And that's kind of a testimony, isn't it? Are our lives really that different? Do we show that we're Christians that much? That's a really one to think about. I'm thinking about it. Charles's health was still not great. He developed asthma while he was in India, unfortunately. I don't know if any of you guys have inhalers, but I don't think they had inhalers back then. It was kind of rough. But even so, through all this, God was preparing Charles for his greatest challenge and his greatest adventure yet. So when the family got home from India, and the girls went to various boarding schools in England and Switzerland, because boarding schools was a thing back then as well, that is when Charles saw it, this poster that made him stop. The poster looked probably nothing like this. So he looked a bit closer, and he discovered that there were some tribes in Africa who had never heard of Jesus. They had never even heard who he was. They didn't know the name of Jesus. It wasn't just, oh yeah, I've got a Bible, but I haven't read it in a while. I heard about Jesus in school, but I don't, They had no idea that God's Son had died so that they could have a good relationship with God again. And that really hit Charles. He started to ask God, why has no Christians been there yet? And it was almost as if God said to him, well, why don't you go? And that Charles had stopped. Well, I'm 50 now, actually. I've got asthma. I've got other health problems. I don't know if I'm the person to go. And it was as if God said to him, I'm the Lord who heals you, and I'll go with you. And then Charles realised that this was the job that God was giving him, to go to Africa. He didn't have that much money left after, being a missionary for so long. He wasn't that healthy. He was getting slightly older. He went to the mission agency and said, I would love to help. And the mission agency said, no, because of course they did. They hadn't heard God speaking to them, and he wasn't very well. There's no point in sending someone all that way, raising all that money, and then them just die. That would, it was responsible of them if they hadn't had a specific command from God to send him, that of course they were going to say no. But Charles had a very specific instruction from God, that God was going to be with him and look after him. I'm going to read you what he said exactly, because his words are cooler than anything I would make up. His answer to the committee was this: "Gentlemen, God has called me to go, and I will go. I will blaze the trail, though my grave may only become a stepping stone that younger men may follow." Which kind of reminds me of Esther saying, "I'll go to the king, and if I die, I die." It's mind-blowing. But how would he get there without the missionary society to help him? He still had no money. How was he going to get... If you want to find that out, you'll have to tune in next week. Sorry, that was mean. Have a great half term, guys, and I will see you next time.